Minecraft. Minecraft is a sandbox game where you Minecraft and, well, other things. It's been around since 2011, and since has grown and developed quite a bit in terms of both audience and content, landmarking it as one of the most popular games of all time. A large part of what makes Minecraft what it is the community around it, a particularly large section being the modding community. Modding Minecraft means that someone has created a mod or modification that adds or alters content in the game. Some of these changes can be small, like adding a few items, or large, like adding entire new dimensions. As we all know, Minecraft is entirely accurate to real life, and many of these mods try to recreate things that have already not been added into the game. This includes cultures. But how accurate are these mods that try to emulate some of these cultures? Let's find out. For the purposes of this video, I'll be looking at the mod Atum 2, which is a self-proclaimed Egyptian-inspired mod that uses sources of Egyptian mythology and culture for its content. It also claims that it takes some inspiration from fantasy settings, but we're gonna ignore that for now. Opening a new game, you are met with a typical Minecraft world. That is because to actually be able to access the majority of the features of this mod, you need to travel to a different dimension. The way you access this new dimension, called the Atum, is by building a portal, then throwing in a scarab, which can be made with gold and an actual scarab or a diamond. Scarabs are actually a symbol in ancient Egyptian culture, symbolizing the sun god Ra. Scarabs also played an important role in the mummification process. While the most common material for the creation of these scarabs were glazed steatite, scarabs made with gold and jewels were also made, usually for royalty. So as it stands, the scarab is mostly an accurate depiction, maybe not in its use, but in its creation. Once this portal is created by throwing in the scarab, you have access to the Atum dimension. Now I don't know if you can see it, but I see a small inaccuracy to how one would travel in real life. Ancient Egyptians traveled by ship, carriage, and by using animals, and I don't know if you noticed, but that's a portal. They didn't travel via portal, so this is not a very accurate depiction. The Atum dimension consists of 9 biomes: sand plains, sand hills, sand dunes, limestone mountains, limestone crags, dried river, dead oasis, and deadwood forests. Most of these biomes match up to real life, the dunes, hills, and plains being an example. However, things like the dried river and dense forest are more of an exaggeration of other concepts. There is a river in Egypt, specifically the Nile, and only recently has it been drying up due to climate change. There are also some dry plants scattered about, as well as some oases that can be found, which are indeed accurate. So, as for the accuracy of these biomes, I'd give them a mostly accurate. One thing I do have to bring to attention is this haze that is constantly in the air of the Atum. For the purposes of this video, I'm wearing a helmet which reduces this fog. Without this helmet on, the fog looks like this. It is always there, no matter the time of day or whatever else is happening. Sandstorm? Haze. In an oasis? Haze. Literally inside haze. While in real life, there can be a haze in the desert, there are also times that deserts can be clear, so I would consider this haze not accurate. Now that we have taken a look at the physical world, let's look at the creatures that live here. The wildlife that exists in the game does actually line up with real wildlife in ancient Egypt. These animals include desert rabbits, desert wolves, or what they would usually be called jackals, quails, scarabs, which they may have taken some liberties for, servals, tarantulas, which also have some liberties taken for them, and camels. All of these do exist in inhabited ancient Egypt, and therefore these animals are accurate. Mostly. Now moving on to the inhabitants of the world, there are 2 types of people in this mod, the passives and the hostiles. The passives consist of the Atum villagers, that of which function basically the same as normal Minecraft villagers. The hostiles consist of a multitude of different mobs, all of which are considered bandit variants by the mod. You have the nomads, the brigands, surgeons, bandit warlords, assassins, and barbarians. All of them are similar in terms of function, besides the bandit warlord, which functions as a boss. They can be found across the world, usually spawning in groups, and will attack on sight. Banditry is usually found everywhere across the world, so the having of bandits is not entirely far-fetched, tomb robbing being the most common I could find for ancient Egypt, so I'll give them a pass for now. The rest of the mobs are, less than accurate, but are based on some ideas that are present in ancient Egyptian culture. The mummies and Forsaken based on, mummies, the Wraith based on, Oogie Boogie, and the Bone Storm is based on, the Stone Guard and Stone Warden based on stone. So yeah, not entirely accurate. The final mob we're talking about is one of the main focuses of this mod, the pharaoh. The pharaoh in this mod is a boss that you find in pyramids. Once you awaken them, you fight them to the death for loot. The pyramids are the final resting places of pharaohs, so it makes sense that the pyramids is where you would fight these undead pharaohs. They also have some visual consistencies with common depictions of pharaohs. However, they use magic and do come back from the dead to fight you, so yeah, not that accurate. Now that we have looked at the inhabitants of this world, let's look at some of the structures this mod adds. There are many structures within the world of Atum, the main new ones being pyramids, gatehouses, ruins, and villages scattered throughout the world. There's also a few other structures, however I won't talk as much about them, as the tomb and the mineshaft are just atomified versions of the mineshaft and spawner room in the normal Minecraft world, and the giraffe tomb is simply an Easter egg left by the developers. Most of the buildings in Atum are made out of limestone, and by most I mean all, with only some of the other materials used as accents. While some of the building choices are strange, such as the ceramic bricks used in the villages, the most used bricks being limestone actually are accurate to real life. Ancient Egyptians used sun-baked mud bricks to build their structures, and oftentimes those bricks included limestone, so I will give it a pass. The only things that stand out as majorly wrong in these villages is the abundant use of glass in some of the houses, as glass was rarely used in building unless by royalty, and was really only used for jewelry making. As for the pyramids of this world, it seems that they include tropes seen in movies, considering all the booby traps that are littered across the labyrinth beneath the pyramids. The pyramids actually did have anti-theft measures, but nothing as elaborate or technical as what you see in movies. The pyramid's labyrinth consists of many chambers, though not of the same style as the actual pyramids, so for the pyramids I'll give them a semi-accurate. Moving on from structures, we will now be looking at some of the items that exist within the Atum world, but with so many of them, we will only be looking at a few, mostly armor and tools. Starting with armor, you can definitely see the majority of the armor has an Egyptian type of inspiration to them. However, Egyptians typically used lighter armor because of the climates, meaning that these pieces of armor that are made with pure metal ingots likely would not have been what they would have used. Diamond is not used for armor in the real world, and gold was only ever typically used as decorative armor for pharaohs. There are also two special sets of armor that cannot be crafted and can only be obtained. These two special armors are the only ones in the game that lessen the haze in the Atum. These two specialty sets of armor, named the Atum armor set and the Ra armor set, are very similar to the looks of ancient Egyptian sarcophaguses and pharaohs. However, these fully covering armor pieces would likely have never seen real use in ancient Egypt if they did exist, deeming most of this armor inaccurate. Most of the mod pack's tools are made via a system called the God Forge, which I'm not going to even look into as it uses crystals and magic, so it's either untrue or a truth none of us are ready for. Looking into tools that are not made that way, we really only get some iron tools and limestone tools. While iron tools did exist in ancient Egypt, that wasn't really until the late stages of their civilization. And while limestone was a common resource for building, it was not used in tool making. Flint was what was commonly used for tools. This makes the majority of the tools in this pack inaccurate. We have covered quite a majority of this mod pack, so to end it off, I will add in some other odds and ends that didn't really have a place within the other sections. Fast mode! Querns, real. They were used to grind up grain and other items similar to a mortar and pestle. Jewelry, real. Ancient Egyptians often made jewelry out of gold and gems, often used for royalty. Almost everyone wore jewelry, and if you couldn't afford expensive pieces, you would use cheaper alternatives. Scrolls, real. Ancient Egyptians would use the stems of papyrus plants to make paper. Linen, real. Ancient Egyptians would use linen for a multitude of purposes, and the linen in the game is even made by spinning flax, just like real life. Cleaning, real. Contrary to popular belief, you can clean dirty things. Lighting torches, fake. You can't light torches. Atum 2 is definitely not the most accurate in terms of the culture it is trying to emulate, but it is, however, a fun mod pack. It has its own charm and adds just that bit of extra fun to the game that you look for in a mod, and I would highly recommend.